Welcome to the Eschatology Podcast. This is Cliff, and I am with Erin Hardison, who has recently been semi-bestowed with being a host of the Eschatology Podcast. He has pulled up Jason. How do you pronounce your last name, Jason? Just so I make sure.
It's Bertholomey.
Okay, Jason that. And so Erin, unlike me in any of these, has actually come prepared, and he has allowed Jason to also be prepared. So this is going to be a first for everybody involved, which is kind of why Erin is here. So I'm going to let you guys go to it. And like I said, if I have any questions or anything along the way, I'll make sure to interject. But otherwise, this is your guys' game. Go for it.
Cool. Well, I appreciate the introduction. I'm sure Jason does as well. I also appreciate the added stress of you telling everybody that we're prepared. Now we have to look like we're actually prepared.
Sorry, no, they are not prepared. They don't know what they're doing. This is their first time ever, and I'm quite frankly, scared that this will turn into a heaping pile of fire. The bar is low.
Yes, I like that's better. That's much better. I would like to start off with this first, okay? And this may need to be, tweaked a little bit and level, but hopefully this works.
I want to ask you a bunch of questions, and I want to have them answered immediately.
Jason, that's you. I want to have them answered immediately. All right, so to kick this off a little bit, so Cliff has already said that this is Jason Bertholomey. Jason is from the North Carolina Sound Quality fame, is what we'll say. Jason organizes a lot of events out in his area for the NCSQ community, and I've attended quite a few get-togethers. I guess probably the past 4, maybe 5 years in a row, I've gone to these events. They're in the spring, and sometimes they're in the fall. But Jason does a great job of hosting these, and I thought it would be great to kind of get him on here to represent the community and discuss how the community there is growing and just what they're about in general. So if you want to say, hey, Jason.
Hello. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, man, not a problem. I'm glad for you to join us. It's really cool. So I'll kind of start down a list of some questions I made, and we'll just go through them a little bit as we feel comfortable. So first of all, I guess if you don't mind, give us a little bit of background about you, what got you into the hobby. I guess that's pretty much it. What got you in the hobby, and give us some background about your professional life and your military service, if you don't mind.
Okay. So to start with, I'm sure I don't have a voice like my favorite podcaster, Jocko Willink, over the mic and so forth. So you'll have to bear with me. I always hate my voice when I hear it on a voicemail or something like that. So
yeah,
it is.
I agree. It
I
sounds
can't
terrible.
really change it. Yeah. But background on me, I love music, and that's the biggest thing. And that's the biggest reason why I'm in this hobby is because of music. I played a little bit, but that's not a big deal. It's more about just the emotional tie with music that I have. I love good music, and I love hearing it played well. So again, people with an iPod or their phone and their, iPhone earbuds or whatever can really enjoy music, and that's good for them. That's awesome. I can enjoy really good music played like that as well. But for me, it just adds so much more when it's reproduced very, very well. And so it just adds to the experience when I can hear it being played well. And I've been blessed with a career and a spouse that allows me to invest in this hobby. And so, some of the things that I've experienced or have or whatnot, I look at it as a blessing. And then, college, and then I went military, spent 3 years active duty, and then 7 years National Guard, went overseas to Afghanistan, phenomenal experience. But you'll see that little military stuff come back in when I talk about kind of how I got into car audio. So basically, it all started when I was in high school, early high school. 1986, which definitely dates me. A friend of mine had a Ford Escort, great car, with a complete Kenwood system. Kenwood head unit, a graphic EQ power amp thingy that went underneath the dash, and then all Kenwood speakers. And I mean, sure, if I could go back in time and sit in that car now, I'd be like, oh my God, this is horrible. But at the time, it was flipping amazing. And I just remember he and I driving through some kind of bad parts of town, just cranking Van Halen Eruption. And that car could get really loud. So that was my first experience of something other than, AM radio in my parents' car. So eventually I got, a head unit, some 5 1/4 coaxials, put them in the parents' car, driving around, And what's interesting too is later on when I really got into the hobby and got very large amounts of power, I thought it was interesting when I'd go back in my mind and think about those early systems with 5 1/4s in the doors and just a single amp, and how when I got out of the car, my ears would be buzzing. And I always thought it was interesting when you get into one of these cars now and you play it at really high level, you can sit there and talk to the guy next to you, even with the system playing loudly, and ears aren't buzzing and all that when you get out of the car. But anyway, back to my little history lesson. High school, college, I had crappy little cars and so forth, and then I went to basic training, and we had these really long road marches. And one of the things that kind of got me through a lot of those long road marches is dreaming of the system that I was going to have. Because as soon as I got out of the basic training, I was going to start getting a paycheck. So I dreamed about, okay, what kind of car was I going to get? What kind of system was I going to put into it? And it definitely got me through some of those road marches. I was at Fort Campbell, Kentucky. There was all these little car audio shops right outside of base, just wanting guys like me to go in there and spend all of my paycheck. So I had a sweet little 1990 240SX, the coupe, not the little hatchback, but the coupe. Sweet little system in it. Again, if I went back in time, it probably sounds like crap. But at the time, it was King Fruki Tuki. I mean, I was just styling in that car.
It was, hold on. It was what?
That's right. Well, I felt like King Fruki Tuki.
I'm not familiar with that phrase. I'm going to have to Google.
You may not have heard that one. I think that's a North Carolina term.
Oh, okay. All right. See, okay. All right. Continue.
And then as I was getting out of the military, again, one of the stupid mistakes that I made, I bought a 1991 Toyota Supra. It was gorgeous. It was amazing. I spent a lot of money to get some guys in Hi-Fi Buys down in Nashville to put little baffles for 6.5s, like where the rear seats were. So in that little kind of underneath the B pillar, that's the only place that 6.5s could go in that car. Now, of course, I know kicks would have been phenomenal, but these guys, that was the only thing they could do is make little baffles back there. So again, spent a lot of money. But I had MB Quartz 3-ways. I had PPI Art Series amps. Pretty decent stuff for the time. And again, with that same equipment, could have probably done really good stuff with it now. Joined Dyma in 2007. So not one of the older people on Dyma, of course, but a little bit older than a lot of the people that I see on there.
Yeah.
I had a Toyota Tacoma that Ryan Slade, a little shout out to him.
Ryan Slade, shout out.
Yep. Looking at some pictures earlier today, I had an Eclipse head unit, the audio control 3.1, monitor audio amplifier, ADS components, Onyx sub, sweet little setup. Again, probably sounded like butt. Then moved up, and this is when I finally got a car that I could put some stuff into it, get some people to help, that might have had a little bit more, I don't know, training or whatever. Got the 2002 BMW 325i. Met up with Zach Leffler, Boosted Rex. So we'll shout out to him.
Yeah, good guy.
Put some Zuki amps in there, stereo integrity sub. Got some good stuff in there. Eventually, got some tuning on it, and that was a fun car. And then finally, my little BRZ that I have now. But going back in terms of how I got into this kind of meet-up type of thing, basically it was I had a car that I could drive around. It had a decent little stereo in it. I can play my music, groovy. Every once in a while I might bump into Ryan or somebody that can jump into it, listen, and that was good. When I went out to California to meet up with Zach, that was kind of a start of, wow, there's a whole nother level. I listened to his car, listened to his little XB that he had. I listened to the Zukis. He had the Dyma sub in there. And that was a really good experience for me. And then in May of 2009, Nick Lemons of Stereo Integrity set up a meet in Statesville, North Carolina. And so I think that was my first real meet that I went to. And kind of interestingly, I met Nick Lemons there. I met Jake Fuller of Sundown. And then my good buddy John Adams, Minibox, all at that one little meet. And then in June, so 1 month later, I flew out to California for work, but I attended Mars Barbecue. And that was the wow moment. I don't know if any of the listeners now, if they've ever been to one of Mars barbecues, really cool experience. Because back in 2009, there was a lot of guys in California that really had nice systems. And then I came back, and in August of 2009, the local guy in North Carolina in Raleigh area, Drake, he did a little meet. And then October 2009, so a couple months later, we had kind of our first NCSQ meet that I kind of hosted. So that is basically my little history lesson of how I got into kind of car audio and then into doing meets and things.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't realize you'd been doing the meets for that long. So I remember the first time I met you, I can't remember what year it was, but I had a meet at my house and you drove all the way from North Carolina. And I want to say you maybe even stopped off in Atlanta to hang out with Ryan and get some install work done, but I may be mistaken. I can't recall. Okay. Yeah, I think I've known you. It's probably been 2009 or 2010 since I've known you.
Right.
So
I just want to interject real quick. I think it's funny. So my first car audio car was a 1991 240SX hatchback. And my first major shop that I got a lot of work done, and the first Mecca event that I ever attended was at Hi-Fi Buys in Nashville. So just throwing that out there.
Small world, man. That Hi-Fi Buys is pretty awesome. I drop in there maybe once every couple years. I'll stop through there just to stare at all the high-end Macintosh gear that they have. And matter of fact, last time I was in there with my daughter and my wife, and there was an older gentleman and his son. And the older gentleman leaned toward, I can't remember what, I think it was B&W, the 802Ds. I don't know which model it is, but it's the ones with the diamond tweeter.
Right.
And the guy started to, he wasn't going to touch the tweeter, but I guess the salesman thought he was. And the salesman barked at me, "You touch those tweeters and damage them, it's $1,000. And my wife just kind of looked at me like, "Well, we wouldn't be doing business here." And then I kind of looked at her like, "Well, we can't do business here anyway because we don't have that kind of money." But that place is cool.
Yeah, I'm actually talking to them right now to do a show, and I was like, I don't care, I'll just do it. I just want to do it for old time's sake. That's it, just to be able to say I did it.
Oh, that's cool. Well, the funny thing about that place is too, that's probably been 4 years now. I stopped in again just to kind of kill time. I was on my way up to Kentucky to visit family, and I got to speaking with one of the salesmen there, and we chatted for probably about 30 minutes or 40 minutes off and on. And man, he let me go into every room. This was I guess a Saturday night. And they had people in there, but he didn't mind. He just let me go into every room and let me demo whatever I wanted to, and was talking to me about the speaker setups and all that stuff. And long story short, it turns out that he used to be an IASCA judge. I want to say it was like early or mid 90s. And so I got to talking to him about car audio. I thought that was pretty cool. It's kind of a small world.
Yeah, no kidding.
To interject a negative story, which I don't like to do, but I think it's relevant. When I was at Fort Campbell, I took, I can't remember, I think it was the Supra, but I think it might have been the car before that. I had bought the Phoenix Gold EQ 215, that beautiful white with the little sliders. I didn't have a clue how to set it. I made the smiley face like everybody does, and I thought, well, I know this is a good place. I'm going to take it to them for them to tune the car.
No, nope.
And again,
Don't
this was 1990. Oh God, 1994 or 1995.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was like 94, 95. So I drove down there, and I was really excited. They said, "Oh yeah, we can do that, no problem. Just park it over here. You're gonna wait? Yes. Okay, just sit over here and wait, and then we'll get it tuned, and then we'll bring it around to you." Cool. Okay. So I waited, 2.5 hours or something. Came up. They said, "Okay, that's gonna be $270 or $150, whatever it was." Oh, great. Okay. I get into it, and it sounded different. Okay, so that's good, I guess. I'm driving away. I'm driving down the freeway.
And that's like when your wife asks how her haircut looks, and you say it's different.
Different.
Oh man,
I can't say good or bad, but it's different. I'm driving down the road, and I was just thinking about it. I went into the head unit, and the treble and the bass were still set what I had set it, like +3 and +2. And it just dawned on me at that moment, that theoretically, I mean, I can't say for sure, but theoretically I was taken, that even at that time, back then, I thought to myself, if these guys really tuned this car, this EQ that I bought, they would have zeroed out the head unit and then just used the EQ that's on the EQ that I bought that I wanted them to tune. So theoretically, they just pushed it to the side, moved the sliders a little bit differently than what I had them, and then, 2.5 hours later, they got me and said, "Okay, it's ready. That'll be $200 and some dollars, whatever." So, it's just one of those things that you spend a lot of money if you don't have something. I think Dyma is really good, or forums like this are really good to get information and to share experiences and so forth. And I think these face-to-face meets and things are really good for this, because I pissed away a lot of money on this journey. And, that was one of the experiences, even at a good shop like that theoretically, I was had. And again, those little shops outside of Fort Campbell, man, they were just totally willing to take your money. They see GI walking in, oh good, here he comes. We can talk him into anything. So knowledge, power, ask somebody, all those things right there, I think, help in terms of learning how not to waste your money in this hobby. I still waste a lot of money, but
yeah, I think we all do.
Yeah.
I like to tell myself it's just further education, like I'm just learning new things, but that's not really the truth. I'm just basically throwing money out the window sometimes.
But you really need that 6-channel Macintosh amp with the meters.
Oh gosh.
Oh yeah.
Let's not get started there, man.
Sorry.
Would you be surprised if I told you I was changing stuff again?
No,
probably not. Yeah. So there you go. But again, it's self-development. I tell myself next car, I'm going to do one install one time, and it's going to be it. I'm going to pay somebody to do all the fabrication that I can't do, which is probably like 90% of it. That way it'll look good and I won't want to mess with it. But no, I don't know. That probably won't hold. No, it doesn't work. So, but anyway, so yeah, I think getting to the meat aspect, kind of what you were saying, Jason, about how getting out there, getting seen and heard and hearing other people's cars, things like that. My first meet was Kirk Prophet had a meet. I think I've told the story quite a few times, so people have already heard this, I'm sure. But long story short, I went to his meet. He played Dire Straits, Money for Nothing. I've been hooked ever since. I think that was probably 2007 or 2008, and it's been game over for me since then. And hearing a great car kind of opened my eyes and my ears up to understanding, all right, you can do these things with a car stereo. It's not all just boom, boom, you know?
Right. Do you find yourself always explaining that when you meet somebody new that doesn't know anything about the hobby, and you say, "Yeah, one of my hobbies is car audio." Oh, really? What is that? Well, it's like a theater or like a concert inside your car, but it's not like. And I always say it's not like one of those cars that you can hear down the road. You can turn it up really loud and barely hear it on the outside. But it's really, really, really good sound inside the car.
Yeah, I think that's my default explanation. Is it's not the loud bass stereo, it's the it sounds good stereo,
Right.
which that's rare if I tell people that, because I normally don't admit that I'm 35 and I do car stereo because whatever. I guess I could tell them I still collect GI Joes too on the side. But,
Yes, I've seen
Right.
that.
yeah, so GI Joes are awesome, man. Anyway,
Yeah, you try career day sometime. Come on.
that's awesome, man. But I tell you what, you're doing what you love, and nothing beats that, for real.
I keep telling myself that.
Well, just every once in a while, send me a text and ask me to remind you, and I'll do what I
All
can.
right, we'll do. Yeah. So
I'm up there for you.
how's those Rockets doing? I'm still passionate about my job. How's your job?
Oh man. All right. I need a break. Speaking of which, I got me some water here for a change.
Nice.
So, oh my gosh, I'm dropping water. I hope you edit this stuff out, which you probably won't. People are like, "God, these guys are boring. They talk about just stereo." Well, that's what you listen to.
I'm just gonna cut to these parts. I mean,
Yeah.
Outtakes only.
Place is staying.
right.
I like these parts. Oh man.
What is your car system like, and what kind of setups have you had led to?
Are you interviewing yourself now? Is that what this is about?
He is. Jason's getting this thing back on track because he came prepared.
Run this show.
Way to
Jason,
go, Erin.
I would like you to ask yourself a question.
There you go. So
No, man, for real, that'll work. Yeah, go with that. What is your car system like now, and what setups have you had to get you where you are now?
I've come to the point where now I like to explain to people that for my car, I purchased the car and I purchased the equipment. I paid for the install. Okay? I had some feedback on the install. Okay? I got to say, well, I really kind of want this, or I really kind of want that. And I've given a lot of feedback on the tune that I have. So, and I say that to people because, if I receive praise, on the aesthetics or the functionality of the install and the sound of the car, I say, okay, well, Mark Worrell did the install, and John Kaiser, most recently, has done the tune. So it's kind of a weird thing. There's a bunch of people in this hobby that it's only your car if you basically did all the install and all the tune. And if somebody says, "Wow, man, that car is freaking awesome," well, thanks. How'd you do that? Well, this person did this and this person did that. So I really make sure that it's clear that I had some input in that stuff, but I didn't actually do it. I have tried installing, and I break every piece of plastic in the car. My wife has said, you are not allowed to do any installation work. And then I've done some tuning on my cars. And at times it can sound pretty decent, but not nearly as good as when I go to somebody that knows what they're doing. So that is all. That is all of that to get that out of the way. And then you have on here, what is your reference? how do I know that my car is sounding somewhat like what the reference material is, or what it sounds like, played back in another system? So for me, headphones is a big part of what I enjoy, mostly for tonality, of course. There are some imaging, there is some staging and so forth, head staging, but it's a little bit strange. But mostly for tonality, for detail, for resolution, and then 2-channel stereo plus sub for, again, tonality, staging, and imaging. So again, there has been times where I could go, oh my gosh, what is that sound? I go into the 2-channel, play it again, and yep, that's in the recording. Or no, that's not in the recording. I don't know what the heck is going on in my car. So I think it's very helpful. Not everybody's going to have all of that stuff, but I think it's helpful to be able to listen to the music in something other than just your car. To kind of get a sense of, okay, is it realistic? Is it kind of what was intended when it was laid down on vinyl? So
I agree. Yeah, having a good reference is, I hate to say crucial because I hate to overstate it, but it really is a very positive thing, I guess, to put it in more modest terms. But to be honest, personally, I don't really have quote unquote reference. I've got various, small IEM headphones. I've had CAN headphones over the years. I'm not necessarily a headphone guy. Right. I've got a nice setup in my home. It's nothing quote unquote audiophile, but it sounds good. But again, that comes back to me. So the reason that I'm personally really into this hobby, as much as I am at least, is because I drive 40 miles one way each day to and from work. So I've got a good 45 minutes sitting in traffic and, driving back and forth. And that's just one way. Yeah. So that gives me a lot of opportunity to either listen to AM, FM radio or jam out with a nice stereo system in my car. So that's where all my time is. And when I get home, it's family time. It's playing with my daughter, hanging out with my wife. And then usually I'm gonna sleep early because I wake up really early too. So I don't really have, I guess, money invested into a home reference or a headphone reference or anything like that. I really rely on kind of culminating a bunch of different experiences, over the years, and not necessarily oral memory or anything like that, but just, I'll hear a system at a show or a meet, and then kind of draw inspiration based on that. And if I hear something I really like, I may talk to the owner and try to figure out, how did you achieve this, or what do we think is helping you achieve this? And then try to apply some of that to my own system if I think I can do it.
Right. And again, that long commute, absolutely. There are times I used to commute 45 minutes one way, and you burn through your music for sure, and that's one of the challenges. But yeah, man, just that 40 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour, some people hour and a half one way.
Right.
Oh, listen to music definitely makes that bearable.
Unless you're listening to like hardcore, metal or hardcore rap or something, kind of get your juices flowing, makes you a little bit more tense, right. That's kind of why I just like to listen to like Enya or something like that. I'm just kind of chilling.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Different strokes.
The king singers.
So actually you kind of touched on what I was going to ask you about, which would have been, or is, I guess I'm still going to ask you, what interests you the most as far as the car audio aspect of it? Do you like doing the installation? Do you like doing the tuning? Do you like just kind of enjoying reaping the rewards, I guess, of having somebody else do that for you?
For me, it's reproducing the music. So that is the key for me, is when you get different tunes or different equipment and so forth, what I really enjoy is when you eventually get to the point where you're listening again to music and not either the equipment or the tune. So,
yeah, I'd agree with that. That's tough to do.
For me, installation is interesting. It's fun. I really wish I could do it. As I said, patience, knowledge, whatever. It's amazing when Mark Worrell was doing the install, and I'd go down and sometimes spend a whole weekend with him at his shop, because that's when he had to do it, was on the weekend, and he would do like a 72-hour marathon where he'd do nothing but work on my car. And it was just amazing that he could just reach down, grab a piece, kind of wiggle it this way, wiggle it that way, and then figure out, oh, I need to pull it this way and lever it that way. Where I would grab it, I'd start to move it and break. Little pieces of plastic would fly up in the air. So again, the figuring out, oh man, when you look at some of these guys, Bing comes to mind, the wiring job. You go, wow, I mean, all that stuff was kind of in his head, and then he reproduced it in real life. That is phenomenal. Well, I don't see it that way. I don't see that kind of way to do it. The tune, again, I find it very interesting. I kind of enjoy doing it, other than sitting in the back seat of a 2+2 sports car, which kind of sucks. But it's fascinating to me to measure, to look at the graph, to kind of figure out what needs to be done next. But for me, it's, again, when the whole thing it just comes together and you're just enjoying beautiful music played extremely well. But my number one thing that I love about the hobby is the people. And again, that sounds like a canned answer, or kind of a, yeah, right, whatever. But, most of my college friends and military friends I've kind of lost touch with or fallen away from. Really, the largest portion of my friends are in this hobby and in the headphone hobby. And so meeting up with people, my job, I used to travel every single week, and that's why I could fly to Texas and fly to California and meet up with people. But yeah, just when I'd fly out to LA and I'd say, hey, Buzzman, what are you doing? And I get together and listen to your car. I used to do that a lot, and that was a lot of fun. I'd bring some CDs with me, figure out where he is, get there, and demo his car. But now it's mostly meets. Other people are holding meets around me now. I'm able to go to, last year I went to Aggie Land. I didn't get to SVR, but I went to Hybrid. So some really good meets that I get to go to and see a lot of the people that I really enjoy.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. I'm right there with you. So as a hobbyist, I grew up riding BMX in my teen years up until about 25. Then I had back surgery. And after that, I didn't really see much of those BMX guys. We grew up, went our separate ways and things like that. And car audio came along right when I was exiting the BMX, world, if you want to call it that. And it kind of gave me another outlet to meet friends, to do things, to hang out with, to learn, So I like you, I really enjoy going to the meets and the shows to hang out with my friends, and the funny thing is I talk more with, you guys than I do some of the people that I was closest with growing up. So no, I totally agree. You mentioned CDs. I don't really know what those are, but kind of, I think it might be music related. I'm not really sure. But I do have a question.
They're like little laser discs. If you picture a laser disc, it's like a miniature version of that.
Oh, like sharks with laser discs on their heads.
Right, you got it. Nailed it.
Freaking laser discs. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Well, since we're talking about music, a really quick question, a really quick answer is needed, and this is for Ben, aka Ben Oral, and the question is: high res music, yay or nay? No explanation, yay or nay. Go.
For me, if you're asking me,
too many words.
Yay.
Oh, okay.
And the reason is,
I'm just kidding.
Dude, I've got the storage space, I've got the DAC. Again, when I'm talking about the headphone system, I don't know. I mean, I've even said that today to Steve. You know, I
Hmm.
asked him. He gave me a disc on MP, or no, not MP3, but it was probably Apple Lossless or something, AAC. I said, dude, this is flipping incredible. I know I probably won't be able to hear much of a difference, if any, but is there a way that you can rip this on AIFF and send it to me? And he did. And so, you know, psychoacoustics are my friend. If I tell myself
Yeah.
it sounds better, it sounds better. I do have some DSD and so forth that I enjoy, especially on the headphone rig. In the car, I'm kind of limited, but I don't know. Can you hear a difference? At times, I convince myself that I can. I do listen to tracks that are MP3 and jam out and enjoy. So it's not like, oh God, you know, if it's MP3, I can't listen to it. That's just it'll hurt my ears. No, it's not like that. But I get a little jazzed when I put on a DSD on the home rig, and I have found some stuff, some high res stuff that's actually fun to listen to. It's not just ding 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 SQ music.
Yeah. No, I know what you're talking about. And I will say too, that in my experience, that a lot of times the high res music is taking remasters, I'll call them, well, I guess they're later remasters, like more recent remasters. And the problem is that the remasters are often worse than the original was, especially in terms of dynamics. Now, so the mix can change, and then the mastering, like the EQ aspect of it, can change as well. And you and I have talked about this. I mean, I bought CDs from Japan because the mastering and or the mix will be a little bit different than the US version or the Germany version or something like that. And there are definitely differences that you can't tell even when I run them through a spectrum analyzer through Audacity and compare the waveforms. You can actually see it. And it's not just dynamic range. It's actually the frequency response, I guess, for lack of better words. So there's definitely a difference between different types and different formats. But I think you have to understand sometimes that the reason that you're hearing something different is because it really is different. It's not necessarily that it has more bits or the frequency sampling is higher. It's that it actually may be a genuine, completely different master or mix. So there's that aspect too, which I see people sometimes they don't really understand it, and they'll just say blanket statements like, "Oh, well, this format is better or this format isn't better," without understanding, why you may be hearing the differences that you're hearing. So I just kind of throwing that out there.
And just a fun little thing that happened the other day, and I told you about that. That listen to that Depeche Mode from 1990, and listen to it in the car, and just there's so much there. And thinking back to 1990, most people, when they were listening to that album, CD, it was a 1990 pressing, so they just could not hear a lot of what was going on in that album. And it's just so fun to think about the ability now to really, really bring out everything that's there. And that to me is pretty exciting.
Yeah, it's cool that technology. I won't say it's catching up, but the end products that we are provided definitely open up some doors for us to maybe hear differences better, especially with speaker manufacturing. I think that's probably the biggest thing that I've seen over the years, continuously get better and better, and we're also learning how to better accept trade-offs too, right, from that perspective.
But I have fallen into the trap. Yes, I've wasted some money in high res stuff.
And, well, I've done that myself.
Yeah, and you were really good about, whoa, hey, dude, buying from that particular source. If you look at the notes, if they post notes, which sometimes they do and sometimes they don't, you might see that was just taken from the CD. I mean, it literally is not any better. You're
right,
paying
it's
more.
just up like that. Right. Yep, and that's all you're doing is just paying for a number at that point. Right. Yeah.
And I bought high-res stuff, in quotes, that were music of Iceland. It was on sale or whatever. It was on that particular site. I thought, wow, it's going to sound really, really good. It was pretty garbage music, and it didn't sound that great.
Music of Iceland.
Another
All right.
$17 or $19 gone.
Whew. All right.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I got nothing for that, man. You're on your own there.
Yeah.
So all right. So let's skip over to the NCSQ. So NCSQ, for the people who listening, maybe still listening or falling asleep, I'm not sure. So maybe I should yell and tell them to wake up, but I won't. So NCSQ stands for North Carolina Sound Quality. And you mentioned earlier that you held your first one in 2009. So the first one I went to, I believe, was 2013. And I had been reluctant to make the drive because it's about 8 hours for me. But when I went, and I say this to everybody, to this day, your meets are still the best meets that I've ever been to. In terms of meets, car audio, contests and stuff like that, it doesn't matter. They're so laid back. And I was actually talking to a fellow the other day, Mike Young, shout out to Mike. And I told him, I said, Jason's meets feel more like a family reunion than they do a car audio meet. We stand around, at least speaking for myself, I find myself talking to you guys and hanging out with friends more than I do necessarily demoing my car or listening to others. Certainly if somebody wants to demo mine, they're more than welcome. And if somebody wants me to demo theirs and provide some feedback, I'm more than happy to do it. But I really just enjoy the camaraderie that you have there and throughout the hobby in general, but especially at your meets. So I don't know if you kind of want to give a little bit more background or talk about how the community has grown and the size of your meets has grown over the years.
Yeah. So again, a little bit of history. 2010, 2009, Drake had some. 2010 was when we had them at the lake in High Point, and then 2011 through 12. So I had a couple at this local lake, and it was a little shelter there and so forth, a little park. It was getting to be really obnoxious to try to get a shelter and all this, and well, do we really need a shelter? Well, if it rains, blah, blah, blah. So I went down to your meet at your house, and then I called you, and I said, dude, so you had it at your house. Was there anything bad about that? Was that a good experience? And you said, sure, man. If, it shouldn't be a problem, go, just do it and see how it turns out. So
right.
2011 and 12 and so forth, I did it at my house, and then we did it at called an Aberdeen Lake Park. So it was out towards eastern North Carolina. And we had another one out there, and then we had it at my house for a couple years, and then this most recent one was at Hagenstone Park. So the house across the street was being built. I was going to lose a lot of my parking space, and so decided to do it at this park. So Friday night is typically at my house. We usually have maybe 5 to 10 to 12, 15 people show up. Hang out until my wife tells me it's time to cut everything off. And then Saturday we do it all day. And then Sunday, if there's anybody hanging around, we listen, talk, that kind of thing. So
right.
I counted them up. I've hosted over 20 meets since 2009. So
oh, wow.
Some of those years were 2 or 3 in 1 year.
Wow. That's a lot.
So again, describe the community. Well, of course, it's friendly. This is North Carolina. So a lot of guys just come here to talk. They may give a demo or two, but for the most part, they just want to come and talk, debate, discuss various aspects of the hobby, and they want to do it face-to-face instead of behind the keyboard. And I remember I used to kind of troll around and say, hey, why don't you demo something, or why don't you listen, or whatever? And they're like, dude, we're just having fun just talking. So now I'm like, hey, knock yourself out. If you just want to hang out all day and do that, cool. It works for me, it works for you. And again, another big part of it for me, and again, I didn't always see this, but now I do. There's a lot of people in this hobby that just do not want to compete. They've got a car that they've put together or they paid for or whatever. They really enjoy it. Every once in a while, they'll put somebody in there, some helpless victim, and say, listen to my car, it's amazing. And you go, wow, it gets loud. It sounds better maybe than my stock system. It really sucks when somebody says, it just sounds like my stock system, just louder. But that's kind of unfulfilling. but those guys aren't necessarily into the competitions. So the meets are a really good way that people can get behind, out from underneath the keyboard and the screen and really interact with some people face to face and really enjoy the hobby other than competing.
Right. Well, and two, I've learned that the meets are often a gateway toward competing because, somebody doesn't want to compete because they don't really know how they'll do. Their system may not be that great to begin with, but they come to a meet or two, get some footing under them, get some understanding and get some feedback. And then they say, okay, well, I think I'd like to compete. And then you've got some of these people that started off like going to just the meets who now have some of the best systems out there,
Yeah. Yeah. And you get some good feedback at meets, but a lot of times the feedback that you get at comps, either from judges or other competitors, is what a lot of times drives your system to get better.
Right. Yeah, that is true. So I noticed in general that whether you necessarily agree with a judge on a particular day, they try to be as objective as they can. And it doesn't matter what org. I mean, I've done it with all of them. And they try to give you objective feedback. You can take that feedback and do something with it. But at meets, maybe it's less at your meet because there's a lot more people who do compete as well. But earlier, when I started going to meets or hosting meets, where there weren't as many competitors, there weren't that many knowledgeable people. And I hate to say that only competitors are knowledgeable because that's not really true. But the fact of the matter is a lot of the guys who compete, they gradually get better with each show. So over time, you learn, not necessarily what's going to be a great competition vehicle, but really and truly, what can make your vehicle better. And then you start understanding the nuances of it and what maybe makes a certain car do, have higher frequency resolution or better subwoofer to mid-bass blending and things like that. The competition brings that out of you to really almost have to get better because you're spending money on it. But if you go to a meet, it's a lot more laid back. So to me, that's the kind of the stark difference between the two, between a meet and a competition, is just the laid back environment. And there certainly are competitions that do have a laid back feel. But sometimes going to meets, you may not get the kind of feedback that you really need to really improve. And again, I hate to overgeneralize. I know some people might be offended and say, well, my meet, blah, 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 or my competition, blah, blah, blah. But just in general, and I think most people will probably agree that seems the way it is.
Just to interject there, I think some of the difference is just experience and approach. It's like the difference between having someone who eats at a lot of restaurants come, if you're running a restaurant and somebody who eats at a lot of restaurants comes to your restaurant and says, hey, this is a great dish, or, Gordon Ramsay comes and evaluates your restaurant, they're looking at from two very different perspectives. Right. So you might have a food enthusiast who loves the food that you have and doesn't really know the difference, or you have a restaurant enthusiast who evaluates different restaurants and has a lot of experience at that level in running a business. And I think that's kind of a different approach. It's even during finals, if you happen to have listened to the top 10 cars and you say that was the best sounding car here, that might be true, but was it the best sounding car when you put it on a score sheet? That's different. So I think that's the two different approaches, and I think it meets two different criteria in the people who want to do that. There are the people who just want to enjoy food. There are the people who want to make the entire structure of that, improved and better in every possible way and care about that. Neither one is right or wrong. It's just a different approach.
Right.
And for me, at the meet, I think a guy or girl that has, a modest little system that they've been putting together, they want to get some feedback. I know that early on, I went to a meet, and it was actually a meet, not a comp. And there was this person that I really wanted them to hear my car and give me some objective feedback. And I remember I went up to them, I think on 4 different occasions during that meet, and just reminded them that my car is sitting right over there, and the keys are in it, and just it's ready for you to listen to so that you can give me feedback. And that person said, yeah, I'll get there. I'll get there. Had really no interest in listening to my car, had no interest in giving me feedback. And so I kind of left there like, what the, geez, I guess that's how it is with the more established in the hobby, I guess. And, I just kind of felt like, man, I wasn't worth enough for that person to give just 10 minutes in my crappy little car to give me feedback. And on the other hand, at my meet, man, I tell you what, anybody is willing to give feedback. Anybody's willing to give a demo and get a demo. Sometimes afterwards, like, oh God, I had to sit through that one. But, there isn't any pomp, there isn't any circumstance at all in this kind of environment. I know at some comps, there's that car that you really want to hear. You may be able to hear it, you may not be able to hear it. If there's 3 judges and they're moving around, or if there's 12 or 17 judges and they're moving around, you may not get that opportunity.
Yeah, it's tough to get in. And I think some people don't understand that. Just to jump in on that real quick, because I've seen people complain a couple of years ago. Some dude on Facebook complained that, oh, everybody at finals had their cars boarded up. And it's like, no, they didn't. I was there. I was one of the competitors, but not speaking for just myself, but as for everybody else, I saw all these cars that were wide open. The problem is a lot of the times that people don't understand that, you paid $200, $300, $400, $500 to be there on a weekend. You may not want to give demos to your car to every single person who comes along right before you're about to be judged, because stuff happens in the middle of a demo. So I think if people understand that, then they won't feel like they have to take it personally,
Another thing about that real quick, about demos, there was somebody started a good thread on Dyma on how do you give a demo, and it turned out to be some really good information on that thread.
Yeah, I remember that.
It's funny. So a couple quick little antecedents. I went to Mars Barbecue, like I said. Bing was there, and I was like, oh, Bing, 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 Bing. I wanted to hear his car. And me and this other guy that I had met there, we got in his car, all excited to hear his car. Got in, put the CD in, started listening. Oh, man, this doesn't sound very good. Oh, wow. Well, I guess he's not all that or something like that. So we got out, found out later that Bing had 2 completely separate systems in the car. And he did that on purpose. He had the OEM stock system, and then he had his aftermarket system that was kind of hidden away. So us just getting in his car, putting on an accessory, threw in a disc in the OEM system. So that piece about getting somebody started, I used to always sit through every single demo of my car. And boy, after 12 hours on a Saturday, man, you are just fried, especially if it's really hot outside and on all that. But again, I was so nervous about somebody either A, having an experience like me, where totally did the wrong thing. Another guy, White Rabbit, another guy at that meet, he had this beautiful VW with a Nakamichi system. And that same guy and I sat down in there, and again, hey, yeah, it's open, go ahead and listen to it. Got in, never seen that head unit before. It was beautiful, but I'd never seen it before. Like, oh, how do you turn it on? What button do you mash? And we sat there for 10 minutes just kind of looking at it. We couldn't figure out how to turn the stupid thing on. So we got out. So for us, especially at this meet, it's just so open and everything. Hey, go in, let me get you started. Either I'm going to sit with you during the demo, or I'm going to get you started. You listen to it. A lot of times now I'll ask, do you prefer somebody to listen to it with you, or do you want to just listen to it on your own? So some of those things. You asked me about just some of the hobbyists becoming friends and some of the stories. So let me tell you this. Let me tell you 3 real quick stories. So again, there's several guys that have come to these NCSQ meets multiple times. Okay, they didn't just come one time and go, "Oh, that was fun," cool. Oh, another one's going next week, next year. It's not really worth going again. I've already been there. I've already done that. A lot of these guys come back every single year, and they spend a lot of money. I mean, it's long trips. Some of these guys are going, several states over. We had some really good experiences. Okay, so I remember 2013. That was the meet that we had at this lake, and Dustin Gregg was there. Okay, and that was the first one that Steve Wagner had come down from Pennsylvania. And Dustin had just gotten out of the Marine Corps. He told a story to a few of us. Not boastful, not brash, nothing like that. Just we asked him, about who he was and so forth, and he shared a story with us. And several of us were so moved by his story that Steve led an effort to help install his car. So he had a really sweet little 240SX drifting car. And, we got Sundown involved, Mark Worrell got involved, Steve did most of the install, Hyber got involved, and that was a really cool kind of event that happened there. Gerald Costa is another one. I had seen some of his postings on Dyma, okay, Time Machine and so forth, okay, whatever. I was going up to Boston for a work trip, so I, connected with him on Dyma and said, hey, I'm going to be kind of in the area, 2.5 hours away. Well, actually 5 hours away. We decided to meet 2.5 hours in the middle. Got to listen to his car, met him, really fun dude. Had a great time doing the demo. He ended up coming down to the next NCSQ meet, up from Boston down to North Carolina. And thank God he did, because he turned on the electricity for us.
That's no joke too.
And he was so cool about, dude, you gave me this disc at the meet, and that's what I've been using to really do a lot of the tuning stuff on my car and stuff, on the truck and everything. And so, daggone it, I made him a copy of all 26 of the discs that I've made and sent it up to him. So, it's just little things like that. And then lastly, Jason Cable. So Jason came to the 2017 spring meet, so last year's meet. And, nobody really knew who he was. He was in a little Mini and didn't have a system or anything, but he was just kind of talking to every single person, listening to cars, and just giving really, really cool feedback and stuff. Come to find out, his story, he's one final install on Dyma, building a truck for his dad. I kind of helped get him introduced to Nick from SI. Nick ended up providing all the speakers for the car, and then ended up doing the tune right before Jason took the truck to SEMA. And again, that was a funny story. It was pouring down rain. The seats were out of there. Nick was basically cross-legged on the floor of the truck with his mic and his laptop. Water kind of dripping in different places. Put a decent little tune on it, good enough for it to go to SEMA and everything. And, just became one of my best friends, Jason Cable. So there's been some really neat little connections that's occurred at these meets. Grayson and Allie coming up. They used to live in Atlanta, used to come up to the meets and so forth. We had a couple of meets down there in Atlanta, and then they went to Texas. And then, a couple years ago, they both came up from Texas to come to the meet. So it's just been a really fun group of people, core group, and then it's kind of built from that.
So I'm not on Dyma, and and all these meets might, be obvious to everybody, but maybe there's one or two other people in the universe like me who aren't on Dyma. So how do we find out about these meets? Because they sound fun and I might want to join.
So it's mostly, It's mostly through Dyma.
And that's fine. If you
Yeah.
know, if we have a search, something we can search for, for those who aren't checking Dyma every day, or is there a general
he's
time
also
of the year, or what happens?
So it's typically I was doing them every year, twice a year. So a spring and a fall. With me going to finals to spectate and so forth, the fall one has kind of gotten a little bit complicated. That's when the wife and I usually go on vacation. So like last year it was only a spring meet, and then I went to finals. So typically what I do is for the new meet thread that I do, I put a link on the previous meet thread. And then some guys that I haven't seen in a while, I'll send PMs to them. Trying to remember now. This is obnoxious, but I think I put a thing on the NCSQ Facebook page. I don't know if there's got any traction.
So you've got an NCSQ Facebook page. I guess you should plug that.
Right. So yeah, there's one on there that Steve actually started the thread. Steve Wagner actually started the group, and several people that have come to the actual meets have they friended or whatever, they liked that page, and so it's on there as well.
I was gonna say, if you just Google in quotes NCSQ meet, then the 2018 meet that looks like is April 6 to 8 near Greensboro, North Carolina, is the first thing that pops up, and you can see the Dyma thread there, whether you're logged in or not, or whatever else if you want more info.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good plug. And then the Facebook that Jason was talking about, it's actually called North Carolina Sound Quality. I don't know, I can't remember who made that. I don't know if it was Jason. I think it was somebody else that started that.
I think that's linked to the ISQ.
ISQ, yeah, it probably is. So, but that's the one that Jason was talking about. So there's probably a link. I'm trying to pull it up now, but I'm sure that the link is in there. The
Preston one was the original that was kind of started based off of ISQ.
Right.
And then so Steve started a new one for our group.
Okay. And what's that called?
NCSQ. I can't remember if it's spelled.
Oh, yeah, it is.
Yeah, NCSQ.
Yep.
It looks like about the only thing that comes up. Yep.
And the important part on that is the little logo. Okay, it has NCSQ at the bottom, and it's got kind of a what you
crossover slopes.
Crossovers.
Exactly. That's the official logo.
The official trademarked and everything.
And one year we had stickers made. I wish we could do that again. They were phenomenal. A bunch of people's got them on there. You see somebody down the freeway with the little NCSQ sticker, you honk your horn and go crazy and stuff. Yeah. It's phenomenal.
Well, so, and I think that you posted a link on the Strictly Sound Quality Facebook group too at some point. It's been a while. I'm not on there anymore, but I think I remember seeing you post that on there too. So there's a few different outlets, but yeah, I think we kind of covered it all here. The NCSQ on Facebook, and if you Google, like Cliff said.
Yeah, I think if you Google, I mean, it looks to me the easiest way to get to the info would be just to do in quotes Google NCSQ meet, and not meat like meatloaf, but and it looks like that seems to be the most relevant information that pops up, and be able to kind of see what everybody is doing and talking about, and looks all within the last couple hours, in fact. So,
right.
Yeah.
And I wanted to give some fun facts, okay, to kind of wrap it up, or put some fun things in with the group, okay. That some of the guys, if they listen to this, they'll go, "Oh yeah, I remember that," or whatever. So some fun facts, the funniest screen names for some of the folks who have come to the meets. So one fellow, his Dyma screen name was Man Stretch, which I never did find out what the reason for that one was.
That's probably a good thing.
Yeah. We had...
Want to see my man stretch?
Yeah, exactly. I don't know what the context was.
Oh, man.
And then we had the Jesus, of course. He was there. J-Man. This guy named Bikini Punk. So he used to come. Yeah.
He's hot.
Yeah.
Chithead, Daniel. That's a good one for him. Band Big Al was there, and then Butt Hurts, Butthz.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, I like that.
Nice pun.
Right.
And those last two, of course, are the same person.
Yeah,
Of course.
of course they are. Yeah. Why wouldn't they be? Good old
So,
Al.
Erin, can you guess at who is the furthest in miles? What attendee came, the furthest to the meet?
If I had to guess, I'd say Chris, just because he's coming from Arkansas.
Arkansas.
Oh, unless you're talking about the dude from Canada. I forgot about that guy.
Ah, yes.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Ali
I forgot
Amiri.
about him.
Ali Amiri.
Ali, yes.
150 miles. Of
He was
course,
a cool
he
cat.
flew. He flew, but still.
But his arms are tired.
Yeah.
That was a Roger Rabbit joke. I used to have a pull string doll. I just flew in and boy, are my arms tired. If anybody else remembers that, I'll buy you lunch next time I meet
No,
you.
I think you're the only one, dude.
Whatever, man. Somebody out there in TV land has heard that before. Somebody had the pull string Roger Rabbit doll in the 80s.
Maybe.
Whatever. All right, I'm off of this. I'm changing gears.
Furthest driving was Richard Linda Papason, 2,738 miles, roughly. Most attendance. Who do you think was the most attendance, other than me?
You. Your wife?
No.
I don't know, man. You tell me.
Kendall.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I can see
Yeah.
that.
So 16. I counted 16 of them since 2010.
Wow. And have you been to any of his recent ones?
No.
That was for you, Kendall. If you listen, that was for you.
And then founding members, Kendall, Drake, Richard, Bose 301, Richard Salami, Adam, Daniel, Sam Podjakan, J-Man, Ryan, John Adams, and Andy Reck. Who now, if he drove from here, he'd probably be the longest from Alaska.
I think so. Yeah, I think that's safe to say.
Funniest moment, again, I just came up with a few that I thought were pretty darn funny. When we were at the High Point Park, I discovered later the reason for this. There were some friendly men that would drive through and kind of ask what we were doing and if we could join. So that was a little bit tense at times.
All right.
I found
Was
out
any of them named Man Stretch?
That was full circle right there. Good job.
Yeah.
Full circle like Creed.
Right. The tramp stamp that was put on Clay, that was a good funny moment.
Good times.
And then Clay dumping a drink on Allie. Pretty funny moment. Highest attendance so far, I think it was the spring 2014. We had 34. We have about that many signed up right now, so we'll see, kind of how many show up.
That's a boatload of people to show up for just a meet. So I think, the reason I wanted to do this whole podcast with you is to kind of get the word out, not necessarily, just about the meet, but, so people could understand that something might be in their backyard that they could come and attend. And even if it's not, in their backyard, and wouldn't mind driving a few hours, 5, 6, 7, whatever, come to the meet, because I think it's definitely worth it. You get to hear a lot of excellent systems. You get to hang out with a bunch of great guys. There's a bunch of knowledgeable people there from, all walks of life. So yeah, no, I think it's a good thing, and I really wanted to kind of promote that. So I'm glad that you're putting that on, and hopefully as many people will show up as they did in 2014.
And again, it's one of those things where it's hard to not go, how many is going to be this time? Oh, is it going to be better? You know what? I got to the point where, if 10 people showed up, man, it'd be awesome. We'll just sit and listen to music.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool when a bunch of people shows up, because there's a bunch of people that show up that don't have cars, that don't have systems. They ride with somebody. They're kind of like, what is all this? Hey, free hamburger. Sure, I'll come. And they go, wow, wow, I did not know that this whole thing was in the world. I did not know
Yeah.
that you could get that kind of sound out of a car. And I did not know that you can get really good sound without spending 10, 15,000 bucks.
Right.
Some of the guys that come to this meet, low budget and sound phenomenal.
Yeah.
And again, one of my favorite cars year after year was Kendall's Milan. I mean, old Diamond Audio amps, speakers with a Alpine 9887. And there were lots of years that I was like, man, this right here, he is awesome at tuning this little system. And it just sounded phenomenal.
Yeah, I don't think I ever got to hear that. I think I've only heard his Explorer,
Right.
but I may be mistaken.
Yeah. So again, it's not about, the elite show up or just people that compete and all that. No, it's
Right.
from guys that have a head unit to guys that's got nothing to guys that, have won their class of world finals.
Right.
And this one, we may have two or three guys that, we'll have, two or three guys that won their class of world finals. So there's a gamut of different folks that show up and different systems that people can listen to.
Yeah, it's definitely an event that a lot of people should attend. To me, I'm making two events for sure this year. One is yours, and the other one is the hybrid SQology in this summer. I mean, I had such a blast last year at both of those that all I've been thinking about since July, I guess, when the hybrid meet was. It's like I'm really looking forward to doing that again. So
right.
It'll be
And
good.
one of the fun little things too is to have this on the schedule where guys are like, I need to get my butt in gear and get my car actually installed.
Yeah, I know some people like that.
Yes.
Yep.
So
I threw in the
a little bit
towel
of
and had to take mine somewhere to get some work done because I was like, yeah, this ain't going to happen by April.
Right.
I was going to ask earlier because I mean, there's typically around 260 work days per year. So, of those 260 work days that you're making that 40-minute commute each way in your vehicle, what kind of percentage of that is your car actually playing music?
I'd say, I mean, all honesty, I'd say my car past 2 years has been put together probably about 2 months total out of each year.
That's pretty good. So maybe I mean I don't want to encourage anybody to do anything illegal. I'm assuming there's nothing illegal in Alabama, so I can say whatever. But
yeah.
Maybe you should consider joining Jason and I in the headphone enthusiast realm, where you can have a backup plan.
Yeah, I think that is illegal to drive with headphones here. That's the one law that we have. Yeah.
You don't need a hood or doors or safety equipment.
Sure.
I mean, you can have, however many 12-year-olds in the car with you at the time you want, but no headphones.
No headphones. Yep. Now I'm driving around without a back seat since August. Yeah. So my wife's been on me about putting my car back together so I can take our daughter, places and not have to drive her car everywhere with the car seat in it. I'm like, why don't I just get a new car? So far that hasn't worked. She hasn't caved in. I think she sees right through me. No?
She knows that you'll just tear it up too.
Yeah, pretty much. I think she's right. Oh man. So hey, Jason, I got a couple quick ones for you. Okay.
Yeah.
And I think you probably are aware of some of these I'm going to ask you. So let's see. So favorite tracks that you would like to demo a system with? Just a few, like as far as just demoing, not necessarily just, for your own musical taste, but if you want to demo a car audio system or any audio system, what tracks do you use and why?
Yeah, I like to use something live to really get a sense of the room. Okay, does it reproduce that spaciousness, ambiance of the room, crowd noise, those kinds of things? I usually like to play something that will show low bass response to see if it's going to drown out everything else, to see what kind of resonance is in the car. Again, mid-bass sub can sound phenomenal. If there's rattles, it just takes it away. It takes away from the experience.
Yeah, I agree.
I want to see if these if the low end images in the front of the car versus the rear of the car, again, the tone can be phenomenal. But again, if it's all imaging behind me, it takes it away from me. I like to play something that has, the really good detail resolution, that has multiple instruments layered out in the soundstage. I want to hear the left-right boundaries, the depth. Depth has a lot more for me personally than width. I just enjoy that wow moment when a vehicle has a deep stage and I can really get a sense of the layering. This is behind this and this is behind that. I like to play stuff that's just fun. Do I feel the energy? Do I feel the emotion of this music? Or is it, again, just equipment playing sounds? So that's kind of a roundabout way of saying some of the stuff that I like to demo.
Okay,
In my
so
demo discs, I try to get something of each genre that I enjoy. So,
right.
I'll have a classical track, I'll have a country track, a reggae track, electronic, heavy metal. It's just fun to listen, okay, the different genres. Does this car, can it do this and do that? Or is it kind of a one-trick pony?
Okay, so if you had to pick a few, or maybe it's something that you've been listening to recently, and somebody said, "Hey, can you recommend a few demo tracks for me?" What would they be, and how do they fit in with what you were just discussing?
So,
If you can't think of anything off the top, then that's
no.
fine. I know.
It's funny that I was just ripping a disc as we were getting started. So I just ordered one. I haven't listened to any of it yet, and I'm really looking forward to it because I got another one from them. So it's a band called Johnny Swim. They were kind of featured on that show Fixer Upper with Chip and Joe. They're good friends and phenomenal. It's a husband and wife. This latest album was recorded in their home, so they can kind of do it when they felt like it. And I think that really came through in the music. They have just really interesting ambient sounds. They've got their, I think, 2-year-old on there, kind of making some noises at the end of a song. Just a really amazing, both of them have amazing voices. So that one really to get the soulfulness of the music and all of the resolution out of it.
So is that a disc, or is that like a particular song off of that? For anybody who might want to go try to find that.
Yeah, Johnny Swim is the band,
Mm-hmm.
and then so another one that I would recommend that I just got from my good friend Steve, Tesseract, I think is the name of the band. Okay, I think I'm saying that right.
Isn't that the thing on Avengers?
That is a geometric shape, apparently, because every time I
Okay,
went
so
to get the image, that's what would come up, is all these silly geometric shapes. I'm like, no, Tesseract the band. Oh, that's what I want.
yeah, you have to tell Wikipedia sometimes exactly what you're looking for.
Unbelievable. It's more like a progressive metal, but if every single band was produced like this album, Polaris is the album that I got, Polaris. The kick drum and the bass guitar are phenomenal. They're incredible musicians, but the way this thing is produced is just flipping incredible. And I only got it recently, so I haven't really had a whole lot of time to listen to it in the car. I listened to a little bit, but in the headphones, again, that's what some of the fun is. In the headphones, I can hear things in that bass, the nuances of the kick drum and of the electric bass that I can't hear in the car. And these vocals just absolutely are just blow me away on this album. So those are just a couple things. Yes, there's going to be tracks from both of those on my little mix disc. So whoever comes can get that and really enjoy it.
That's cool. All right. I think that might be all I've got for you. So I appreciate your time, and Cliff, I appreciate your time setting this up as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jason,
Well,
you got any parting words or anything?
No, I just appreciate you setting this up. I've enjoyed the SQology podcast. I think it's phenomenal to, get some really good people on there to talk about the hobby, talk about some of the different aspects of the hobby, competition. Really gained a lot of knowledge from listening to them, and it's a fun thing to do, to listen to the podcast.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank
you. Yeah, I agree. It's a nice outlet to have, especially for people like me who have a long way to drive and need some time to kill and have burned out or exhausted their entire musical collection.
Well, you got two things right there that you can get and listen to.
Yep.
That's awesome. Well, thank you guys, and we will chat soon, definitely, and hopefully, guys, get out to the meet in North Carolina. I'm certainly going to do my best to be there as well. Sounds like a lot of fun.
Sweet. Yeah.
And we will make it happen. So thank you much, and have a good one.
All right, man.
Thanks.
Thank you. Have a good one.